I'm some random guy, and since I read The Irresistible Urge, I should probably read The OC, Draco Malfoy, and the mortifying ordeal of being in love. Bill. It sets the dynamic early that Draco is not used to muggle clothes and puts a lot of attention on what muggle clothes Hermione is wearing. Draco can see the precise outline of her calf and the shape of her knee. It's fun to see the introduction of more modern clothing to the magical world and how the characters interact with it. There are plenty of comments made that Hermione smells like soap. So many comments, combined with the other soap comments from the author's other book, that the author clearly has a fixation with some kind of soap smell. At one point, Hermione smells like shampoo, alright, and antiseptic. What? That is not normally an appealing smell. Draco's point of view describes electricity as electic lights and electric shock. I didn't understand why the author didn't just call it electricity at first. It took a while before I realized, oh, this is written from Draco's point of view and he doesn't really understand or care about muggle electricity. Which is fine and fun in a way, but kind of weird that electricity isn't normalized, even to wizards. When Draco had a conversation one-to-one with Rosalie, it did a really good job of showing that Draco was really disinterested and she was just too boring for him. He was instead thinking about talking to Hermione, since when the last time he was with her, it was a dangerous, exciting situation with some hags. It feels like a good show don't tell example of us learning what Draco needs as a partner and what his personality is. Later, Narcissa tells Draco, I don't think she exists, the perfect witch you're apparently waiting for. The very next word in the book is Granger. That's a fun bookism. At one point, Hermione is giving a conference presentation. It's a good moment where she's being portrayed as very proficient, confident, clever, important. It's Draco seeing her in her element and changing his opinion of her. Right after this, Draco finds Muggles impressive and wonders how he ever thought poorly of them in the past. It's nice to see that he's matured and grown less prejudiced.
Prejudiced.
But this feels like such a huge about face to his core character that it kind of smells to me like an opinionated author imposing their worldview on a character who doesn't normally share it. It feels a bit too much of a stretch for me to believe that Malfoy suddenly thinks Muggles aren't just worms compared to him. At one point, Muggle fashion and their emphasis on bums was growing on him. Can't blame him. There's a lot of good innuendo going on in the conversation between Draco and Hermione. Draco says, use me as a prop anytime. And a bit earlier, Draco asked her, what other naughty habits have you got? When talking about her depravity of going to a library. When they're both out at a pub with Hermione's colleagues, when asked what he was doing out at Oxford, he said, Dr. Granger. Throughout the story, we also get to see Draco's preferences change, which is fun to see. Separately, with no connection whatsoever to Granger's bum, Draco concluded that robes were overrated. Over time, Draco begins to enjoy spending his time with Hermione instead of dreading it like he was in the beginning. Who knew that teasing the swat of the century could be such a glee-filled activity? It's good to see his progression of warming up to her. It's not sudden, it's over time. While in that pub, Draco eats a pub pastry and loves it directly after a comparison saying that his mother would have had a heart attack seeing all of the pub food. It's nice to see that he is, in fact, different than his mother. At one point, Hermione's Patronus talks and calls Draco names. As far as I knew, a Patronus couldn't talk or travel a long distance like a homing missile, or do pretty much anything except repel a Dementor. I don't remember if they're more capable in the books or if it's artistic liberty. Later on, some Muggles assume that Draco is proposing to Hermione when he's putting a ring on her finger. She's then surprised to find that Draco doesn't care that someone thinks he's proposing to her. This is a big deal to both the reader and Hermione, because aside from all the other reasons he wouldn't want to marry her, she's not a pureblood. When the book first mentions Draco's Patronus, I get the thought that his happy memory used to conjure the Patronus is going to be relevant later. I really hate the author notes before our chapter. The party scene. We've read it 1,000 times and we still love it. I'm trying to read a story here. Thanks for immediately taking me out of it. I didn't ask for your commentary, I asked for your story. There is a voulez-vous coucher avec moi joke, which is funny because I remember that from grade school. At one point, the book inserts some fan art that says, "Do not repost." The author probably got the artist's permission, but still. Reposted. Granger. What? Tell your cat, I said. Psst, 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 psst. Draco eventually gets into a fight with some baddies near a big poisonous creature, and immediately I thought, oh, he's going to be poisoned, and Hermione, the healer, will heal him. Of course. Later on, Draco saves Hermione from some intruders outside of her office. When he uses legitimacy to read one of the attacker's memories, he hears a familiar, raspy voice. My immediate screaming thought is, please don't let the major antagonist of the story be Voldemort or some other character I really know. Just make it some random character, maybe mentioned in the books once or twice, but nobody I really know. Like the bad goblin in Hogwarts Legacy. Who's he? I don't know. The story starts by saying there will be no filler content of the Harry Potter ensemble cast. Please stick to that. At this point in the story, I'm thinking of people who can change into animals. There's Lupin, still alive in this story. It would make an interesting antagonist since his wife Tonks is Draco's boss and she's the head of the Aurors. So that's kind of interesting. There's Sirius, dead as far as I know, but this story already brings others back to life, so maybe he's back. But let Sirius be a good guy. The only other werewolf or animagus I know of is the big hairy guy who eats one of the students in the Battle of Hogwarts. I don't even know his name. Finally, after hundreds of pages, we get to learn the research that Hermione is doing. I'm going to cure lycanthropy. That's it? It's kind of disappointing. After all of this build-up, I was expecting something world-changing, like we can give magic to muggles, or we can take magic away from some magic users. Werewolves are such a non-issue in this world that muggles still think they are fantasy creatures. They can't be that much of an issue. Fun book moment. Draco thinks she ought to be on a chocolate frog card. And then he says it. It's great back. After the revelation of what Hermione is working on, Draco feels that Hermione is actually better than him on many levels and is even too good for him. I did not expect the role reversal of him not feeling good enough for her. Soon after, there's a very unexpected Draco masturbation in the shower. Right after the crux of the story is revealed. I get that I'm reading this book more of a fiction reader focused on the story and completely forgetting about the smut. But the smut is like a slap wake-up call. Immediately after the central act of the story is wrapping up, it just felt unexpected. She resumed her seat on the sofa across from Draco, which left him with a distinct feeling of lack at his side. Oh, this cute little Draco has a crush. At one point, Hermione turns Draco's cufflinks into handcuffs. There was an exhilaration that came with being so quickly overpowered. It's a nice contrast between his regular life, where he's a really proficient Auror, and it never gets overpowered. Hermione eventually writes a message to Draco saying, "Miss you terribly." And she really just starts communicating with him just for small talk pleasure. I think this is the first time in the story she's done that. The eventual first kiss between them happens purely by accident. It was unceremonious and unexpected. It's kind of a letdown. Also missing a period. The sphere of light glowed still, but it wasn't in the Deluminator. It was in him. Nice. At one point, Draco walks through the corridors of his manor and knows that Hermione has just passed there because of the lingering smell of soap. I was already so tired with the soap commentary. He had often wondered what pushed so many of his friends to marriage and the smallness of domestic bliss. But sometimes, when Granger came home and smiled a hello, and sat next to him at the table, sometimes for a brief moment, he understood. Those moments were a glimpse of something he didn't know he could want, but they were fleeting, and the feeling vanished when he went to bed, and left him with a sense of loss of something he had never had in the first place. Well written. Real. Favorite paragraph of the book. Then you've got to teach me the computer. When Draco and Hermione return to his manor after a party, Draco pulls Hermione into a separate room to dance. Granger mounted no further objections, but allowed her drunken self to be pulled along, looking politely confused. I don't like that the only positive relationship progress between them seems to happen when they're drunk. That doesn't send a good message that they are only compatible when inebriated, and in their conscious, rational minds, they would never consider each other. After that dance, I'm 3/4 of the way through the book, and I'm starting to think like I won't be satisfied with the ending. There's too little of the book to wrap up the Lycan plotline, get them together, get them to a happy place together. Just feels like there's too much. My hated chapter notes hits me with a trigger warning for violence in the second half of the chapter, and now the chapter is completely uninteresting to me because I know there's some fight in the end. So thanks for spoiling. The dance, the lights, the music, the woman in his arms. It was a moment of scintillating joy that would become one of Draco's fondest memories and produce astoundingly powerful Patronuses for years to come. Called it. But also now I know he lives. I would rather not know that. Next they have a scene in front of a window at night where they do some grinding. Draco's was weeping. No, don't use that word. Draco turned to leave, then he froze. There, amongst the usual burnt candle waft that trailed Granger, was the unmistakable scent of female arousal. Bruh, that's a different story. Later when Draco's alone. Several million Malfoy heirs were splattered onto the floor. Oops! After his orgasm, he feels her orgasm in the ring. That's fun. Auntie Maud was eating a cocktail sausage, but indecently. You didn't ask me where my favorite spot on the estate is. Oh, well, where is it? Here, with you. Nice. Chapter notes. Enjoy the P&P 2005 homage? What? You ever heard the advice given to comedians that if the audience isn't in on the joke, it's not a good joke? That's what this feels like. Chapter notes. They decided to make a proper party of it. Patronuses and jocks were sent out. Soon the salon was filled with family and friends. Lupin and the kids, Potter's wife and tots. Potter's wife and tots? You mean Ginny? Why doesn't the book just say Ginny? How do you make looking like a hungover vampire so alluring? Whatever is the matter? Don't you like these? Am I curdling your jizz? In the final sex scene, Hermione suggests to Draco that he read her mind with legitimacy to understand her exact thoughts for a scene and what she wants to do. That's actually a really good idea for rapid, exact communication of desires, actually. That'd be nice to have. That's the book. And you know what? I actually liked it enough that I'll probably read it again someday. 4 out of 5.